Dr. Mohammad Rafi, Associate Professor, Department of Cyber Security at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today I want to discuss about network, the programming and management subject, in which the topic is TCP socket functions and UDP socket functions. TCP socket functions. TCP is nothing but it is a transmission control protocol. That means it is a connection oriented protocol. Generally, two devices are connected. In these two devices, the data transmissions can be done with help of the TCP protocol. That is a transmission control protocol. UDP protocol, that is a UDP stands for user datagram protocol. So these are all the two main protocols used for the data transmission over the internet. Connection oriented versus connectionless. That means TCP here, the connection oriented means the TCP protocol, we are calling it as a connection oriented. Connectionless means here the UDP protocol. User datagram protocol is a connectionless protocol. Best the example is a mobile communication. Mobile communication, we are using the user datagram protocol. By using this protocol now, we can transferring the data from one device to the other device. Transmission control protocol sockets. If you take these are the sockets, now transmission control protocol, it is a connection oriented protocol. Before any data can be sent, a connection must be established between the client and server. After establishing the connection between the client and server, device A acting as a client and device B acting as a server. After establishing the connections, then only the packets can be transferred. So this is the packets. These are the packets can be transferred from client to from the client device to server device. Device B acting as a server other device. Here, via the routers, the data, the stream of the data, it is a stream of the data. The data can be transferred with help of these TCP protocol via the routers. It will be monitoring over the internet only. So it can be transferred over the internet only. With help of this internet only, so it will be transferred. Generally, these are the transmission which is involves a three-way handshake. Three-way handshake means here that is a synchronization, acknowledgement and the acknowledgement. With help of these now, these three-way handshaking now, the communication can be established between the source and destination. The functionalities in a TCP socket, the function. What are the functions now we are utilizing for effective communication? Here is generally we are using the socket. So socket is the function. With help of this the socket, now we are creating the new socket. Where we are creating the new socket, now generally we can create the new socket at source side and destination side. Source side means at a client side and at a server side. Client side socket now which is acting as sending the data or receiving the data. That means a response are received. Whatever the data sent to the server, the response received from the server. So after the creating the socket, with help of this the socket the function now we can create the new socket. And bind method, bind function now if we take the bind the function, these are the bind the function generally here now which specify the network address. Binding the network address, specific network address. These specific network address now which is combine the IP address of the particular system and port number of that particular respective identified other device. Listening. Listening here, so which is listens for incoming connections on a socket. That means server. If we take the server at a server side, now we are arrange the at server mission the sockets. These are the sockets. It will be the listen. It will be listen whenever the signals or messages are coming. The messages are coming from the client. From the client. Here, so it will be received with help of the server socket. Server socket. Here is accept. Accept with help of this the function. Accept the function. These are the function which is accept a connection from a client device. Connect. Connect means here these are the connector which establishes a connection to the server. After establishing the connection, only sending the data, receiving the other data, sending the data, the client is sending the data to the server. So it is sending the data to the server mission. Sending the data to the server mission and receiving the data from server other mission. Send for that now sending receiving now which is we are utilizing send function and send all function receive function. These methods now generally we can utilize. These are the functions for sending and receiving the data from the server. Close function here. This is the method now. Close method. Why we are using means now once the communication is completed between the server and the client between the two devices, just now we are utilizing the close function. These are the close function which closes the sockets. Here UDP sockets. UDP, so it is a user datagram protocol. Whenever the communication is a wireless communication between the two devices, the best example is a mobile communication. Here is in a mobile communication, these UDP sockets now we are utilizing at server side. For example, now we take the Airtel server, we are utilizing the UDP sockets, and Vodafone server, we are utilizing the UDP socket for receiving the other signals from one mobile device to the another mobile device. So it should be while using the UDP socket at the server side. So it is acting as a wireless other device. Here is this UDP. It is a connectionless protocol. There is no connection between the sender and receiver between the two devices. Without the connection, we can establish the communication from one device to the another other device. Here is the data can be sent without establishing the connection first. Here is in TCP now. If we take the TCP, in TCP the connection is required for sending before sending the data. But in a UDP, the connection establishment is not required. Without establishing the other connection, direct now with help of these the IP addresses now, direct port number IP address, direct we are sending the required device. Whatever the required device is there, for that the required device now, direct we can send the data. Each packet is sent individually and may take the different paths to reaching the destination. Number of other paths can be considered. Among the number of paths, now we are taking the shortest distance or shortest path. Here is the functions in a UDP. While using the UDP protocol, generally we are using the functions are socket. So socket function which is creating the new socket at a source and a destination side, and bind function. So these are the bind function. Now this is the bind function which is associates the socket with a specific network address. Now we are utilizing the some specific network address. Sender to now we are sending the data to a specific address. The specific address now which is contain the both IP address and plus the port number of the particular device. Port number of the particular device. Now, based on this, the IP address and the port number, now we can send the other data. Receive from here. These are the receive from, which receives the data from a specific address. Close means here closes the sockets. So this is about the connectionless service diagrammatic representation. Now we are transmitting the packet 1, packet 2, packet 3. Number of other packets can be transmitted between the device 1 and the device 2 without other connection. Before sending these other packets, there is no other connection is required. No need to connect the two devices. Without other connecting, now we can sending the data. We can transfer the other packet. Here, aspect the differentiation, main differences between the TCP socket function and UDP socket functions in terms of protocol type. In terms of the protocol type, the TCP are the connection oriented and UDP are the connectionless other protocols. Without the connection, we can establish the communication between the two devices. Here is reliability. Reliability now that means which ensures the reliable delivery, error checking, and retransmissions can be effectively done. So that means now which is having TCP sockets functioning now, which is having the high reliability for data transmission. UDP now, which is a connectionless the protocol, that's why the reliability now doesn't ensure the reliable delivery. So it is a connectionless. It may be lost during the transmission over the internet. The data may be lost. We can't give the reliable deliver to the particular device, the destination device. Connection setup. In terms of these the connection setups, here in a TCP, which requires the three-way handshake. Three-way handshake means here synchronous acknowledge and respond. That is acknowledgement. Here synchronous acknowledge and acknowledgement. So these are the three-way handshaking is required in a TCP to establishing the connection for transmitting the data between the two devices. But in case of UDP, the socket function, so no connection setup is required. Without the connection setup, now we can transfer the data from client to server. Here, in terms of the data transmission, the aspect here, the stream oriented, continuous stream of the bytes can be transferred. So it is a stream oriented and message oriented. So message oriented, that means here, so discrete the packets calls the datagrams. Overhead means here higher overhead due to the connection managed reliability mechanism. So the management should be the higher overhead and lower overhead due to the lack of connection management. Here the connection management is there is no connection management. Without the connection, now we can transfer the data. That's why the overhead is a very low overhead. So ordered data means now, so which ensures the data arrives in order. That means no guaranteed of the data ordered. So this is ordered of the data difference. And error checking. In terms of the error checking, now if we take the differences, the differences are, so main the difference is error checking. So which is the providing the error checking and correction. The TCP socket function while transmitting the data. So at the receiver, now which is checking the errors, error checking, error corrections can be done. And also UDP socket function. UDP socket function now, that means the minimum error checking and no other corrections are the required here. And use cases. So usability. TCP sockets are which is suitable for the applications, any applications which is needing the reliability. That means now TCP sockets we are utilizing in a web servers, emails, any email transactions. Now we are utilizing these TCP sockets. So this is a use case in a TCP socket. And UDP sockets, streaming and gaming. Where we are utilizing means now in a streaming. We are UDP the sockets are utilizing in a streaming and gaming. That means now which is suitable for the applications needed in terms of the speed. Here needed in terms of the reliability. TCP is any applications. So while utilizing the TCP, the applications are required in terms of reliability. Whatever the applications are reliable, now we can use the TCP socket function and UDP socket function. So here it is in terms of the speed will be considered. Socket the creation. Here is the socket the creation. That means now with help of the socket the function, we can create the socket. In UDP also, with help of the socket the function or socket method, now we can create the UDP socket the functions. For both TCP and UDP, we can create the socket function with help of the socket method. Here is bind to address. Bind to address here. So in terms of the bind to address, TCP socket the function which is using the bind function, and UDP socket functions also now which is using the bind method. Here listening for the connection. Listening in terms of the listening for the connection, in connection oriented the devices, the server device which is using the listen method. By using this listen method which is accepting the data, whatever the information is coming from the client, that information can be listened and accept that information. So receives the information. UDP socket functions. In terms of the UDP socket functions, here is the listening for connection. It is not applicable, so not required in a while utilizing the UDP socket functions at the server side. Accepting connections. Here is accepting connections. In terms of the accepting connection, now we are using the accept functions. Here not applicable. Acceptance is not applicable. Without the acceptance, it is a wireless the communication. This protocol is a wireless communication supported protocol. That's why the acceptance is not required direct now, which is sending the information. But here it is a connection oriented communication. That's why the acceptance is required before sending the data. The connection is required. Then only if it is accept, then only we can sending the data. We can transfer the data from sending to server to client the responses. Here is in terms of establishing a connection. In terms of establishing the connection, now TCP socket functions now, which is connecting functions method we are using for establishing the connection. So not applicable here. No need to use the connect method. Without using the connect method now, directly with help of these user datagram the protocols now, directly connect to the so and so particular the device over the internet and establish the communication. Effective communication can be established without the connect method. Sending data. Sending data in terms of the sending data in TCP socket functioning, which is utilizing the send method or send all method. By using these two, send function, send all function, now the sending the data from the client to server and receiving by using the receive method, receiving the data from server to client. Here also UDP also, which is using the send to function. With help of the send to function, which is sending the data from client to server and receiving the data from server to the client here with help of the receive from function. With help of these the functions now, we can receiving and sending the other data. For that now we have to utilize these other functions. Here is closing connection. Closing connection here, in terms of closing connection, TCP socket functions now, which is using the close, by using the close method now, closing the functions, and UDP socket also, which is using the close function. When it is closing the function means once if it is the communication is completed between the two devices, then only we can utilize the closing function. So these are the closing function terminate the communication. Handling corrections. Handling correction means now which is requires the handling of connections life cycle. That means now if any errors are arise during the transmission between the device 1, between the source 1 to device 1, that means source 1 to the destination. Here while transmitting the data packets, now here if any errors are arise, that errors can be handling and correcting the errors. Error corrections can be done after correcting the errors now, which is retransmitting the data between source and other destination. That is establishing, maintaining and closing. So these the operations can be performed at TCP socket functions by utilizing the TCP socket functions. In a UDP socket functions here, in terms of the handling connection, now what it is doing now, which is handle each message independently. Handles each message independently. Here is TCP socket real-time applications. TCP socket real-time application. So these are the TCP socket real-time applications are the web browsing, email. So TCP sockets now we can utilize, we can use it in a web browsing also. That means the application are a web browser, Chrome, Firefox and the Safari. So these are all the applications. In these are the applications now we can utilize the TCP protocol. By using the TCP protocol, so these the Chrome, Firefox, Safari, the data transmissions can be done. So reason here, reason in this the application by utilization of the TCP, which ensures the very reliable. The reliability, whenever the reliability is high, now that means the meaning is a TCP protocol are utilizing. Delivering orderly delivered of the web pages, whatever the web pages you are transferring, delivering it is in order, essential for the loading the completing the web pages accurately. The emails are the applications regions. The applications are email clients, Outlook and the Thunderbird. So these are all the for email the purpose also. Now we are utilizing the TCP control protocol. These are the protocol which is uses like SMTP, IMAP, POP3. So like this, that requires the reliable other transmissions to ensure the emails are sent or received the correctly. Now which is ensuring that the emails are receiving or correctly or not with help of these other protocols. File transferring also now we are the applications are file transfer protocol, SFTP protocol clients, that is FileZilla and WinSCP. So here also now we are utilizing these are the protocols. There are the applications. Remote administration also now we are utilizing. The application is SSH client, that is a PuTTY, OpenSSH. Now in this now remote the administration also we are using the TCP protocols, which requires the reliable and secure connections for the remote the command execution, and the file the management. For that now we are using as a real-time other applications, and also financial other transactions. Financial transactions, in terms of the financial other transactions, also banking and online banking, stock trading. So any other financial other transactions can be utilized, which ensures the reliability and integrity of the financial transactions. The applications here, The database replications and synchronization tools. Region now, which are the reliable data transmissions can be done to ensuring the data consistency across the systems. UDP socket real-time applications are UDP now. If you take the streaming media, data streaming, data flow, packet streaming, now we can use the UDP. It is a connectionless. Best example is a mobile communication. Live streaming platforms, that is a Twitch, YouTube lives. So these are all the streaming can be YouTube live or the operations that can be performed with help of the streaming. That is a streaming the media. Here, why? Because now which is minimizing the latency and buffer size. YouTube now buffer size and latency can be minimized, which smoothly playback. Online gaming also now the application fast paced the multiplayer games. That is a Call of the Duty or any online gaming. The reason means reducing the latency to provide the real time the responsiveness and the actions in a online gaming. VoIP, that means voice over internet the protocol service. Also now we are utilizing the UDP protocol, that is a Skype, WhatsApp calls. For that now we are using the UDP the protocol. By using the UDP protocol, now these operations can be performed. Video conferencing, the applications are video conferencing tools, that is Zoom, Google Meet. So for that now we are using these protocols. Why? Because the latency should be the in video calls or audio or the transmission in the real time interactions. The latency should be the very less. That's why we are utilizing. And sensor data transmissions, IoT devices, environmental monitoring system. Okay, why? Because data transmission latency is very low for real-time monitoring and decision making. Domain name server the queries also now we are utilizing the UDP protocol. Domain name systems the services now for that also. Why? Because fast resolution of a domain names with minimum data size requirement is required for the domain name the systems the services. For that latency also very low. And a TCP socket the outcome here now, outcome of the TCP and UDP. TCP socket now which is ensures reliable ordered data transmissions, make the ideal for the applications like web browsing, email transactions or secure remote administrations. So this is a outcome of the TCP socket the functioning. UDP socket functioning. Now if you take the UDP socket functioning, so the outcome is now which is the providing the low latency and also data transmission is very efficient. So why? Because UDP is a connectionless, TCP is a connection oriented. This UDP now which is making them suitable for the real time applications such as live streaming, online gaming, VoIP, voice over internet the protocol. So these are all the outcomes of the TCP socket functioning and UDP socket the functioning. And the reference book for this topic is William Stalling now SNMP, SNMP v2, SNMP v3. Now these are the protocols, IP protocols. So here is this is a reference book. Web references are the chartgpt.com. So this is the web references for this the topic. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.